Good morning, guys. I hope you guys are doing great and your semester is going well. Today, we're going to talk about our working capital schedule and possibly our intangible and PP&E schedule. But what exactly is a schedule? Well, we just got done with our balance sheet, our historicals for our balance sheet. Now we have to project it. And one of the common ways, although there's different ways of doing it, one of the common ways of projecting out your balance sheet is by creating schedules. Now, schedules are essentially kind of the way they're formatted looks like a schedule, but it is kind of used to kind of project out your line items. And the schedule has, this particular schedule has like a 3-prong or 2-prong option that your Excel can kind of think on its own and just spit out some numbers and makes your life a whole lot easier. But before we do that, and your working capital essentially is your accounts receivable, your inventories, prepaid expense, other current assets, accounts payable, accrued expenses, taxes payable, and other current liabilities. And your essentially working capital is the capital that you use that you make money off of. Okay, and majority of these are current assets or current liabilities. So yeah, all right. So accounts receivables. First, we're gonna link up our accounts receivables. Let me zoom in so you guys can see. Hold on, let me press accounts receivables. Zoom in for a little bit. There. And then we're gonna copy this, Control C, move it down so we have our second columns, accounts receivables. Now we're gonna calculate something that's called collection period. And collection period basically tells us what are the, I don't want to say average, what are the typical days that your customers pay off their credit that they owe to you, right? So that's what we're going to calculate. That's like one of the statistics that you look at, or one of the ratios that you look at when it comes to receivables. So how do we calculate that? Well, we're gonna do accounts receivables divided by. Now you can go all the way up to your to your revenue, but you can press page up and you'll move quicker. So you're going to do accounts receivables divided by your revenue, multiplied by your period. Now, what is my period? Well, it's going to be 365 days, right? Since there's 365 days in a year. But there's another complicated way that your model does is, which essentially takes these 2 years, finds the difference between them, which should be 365, and calculates it like that. So now you can press Control C, and you're got your periods. Now, what are we going to do in these boxes right here? Well, what we're going to do, we're going to create I want to say a small human brain for Excel to kind of think on its own feet. So we're going to put a long formula that would kind of automate some of the things that we want to do for, let's say, for the next evaluation. So we're going to do if. If statement is typically used to find the true or false formula. Let's just say if A does not happen, then B happens. If B does not happen, then C happens. That's what we're going to create. So we're going to do if is number, and what is the is number function? Well, it basically tells us, does cell G15 has a number? Does it? Well, the answer is going to be no, right? Well, we have to answer what's going to happen if there's a number, and if there is a number, what should we do, right? So if there's a number in G115, what we're going to do, we're going to use that number. Why? Well, because it's an absolute projection. Let's just say that the management tells you, okay, we know our accounts receivable is going to be $1,500 for next year. Well, you can put that $1,500 in this box, and what's going to happen, that's automatically going to be feeded into your formula, and that's going to show up on your accounts receivables, right? So that's one, but let's just say that's false. There's no number in there. Well, you have to create a second option, which is, let's do if is number. Let's just say that there's a number in days of revenue, okay? Well, if there's a number in there, then we have to reverse the calculation to find our accounts receivables, right? So instead of dividing by revenue, we have to multiply by our revenue, and except for multiplying by our period, we're going to divide by our period. So we're going to do exactly that. So take your take your accounts receivables for that particular year. I'm trying to say here. Yeah, take your period, divide that by multiply by your revenue. Alright, then divide by your period, which you can do this way, or you can just put 365, whatever works for you guys. And if there's no number in there, then we have to create a third option, which we don't have to put a if is number. We don't have to put a if is number because we're just creating one more option. We're not creating another two options. If that doesn't happen, we're gonna essentially increase our revenues. I mean our accounts receivables by our revenues. The way our revenues is being increased. So we're gonna use our revenue assumption over here. Just gonna grow it with our revenues. Yes. Alright, so here we go. That's our accounts receivable. So what we did was, okay, like I said, let's just say that management thought that next year we're gonna have 1,500 in accounts receivables, and that's gonna automatically turn into 1,500. But let's just say we don't have that, but we have our days of our revenue using some statistical descriptive statistics for the past 20 years or whatever. So let's just say we have 50. Then we're going to use that number to find our accounts receivables. But if we don't have that, our last resort is essentially growing this by our revenues. And that's what we did. So we're going to do that again with our inventory days. I mean our inventories. So let's link up our inventories. Oh, went two up. Inventories. Press Control C, enter. Now, inventory days is similar to revenue. This is up where you're dividing your inventories by your COGS rather than your revenue. So you're going to take your inventory, or let's just go up here, inventory divided by your COGS multiplied by your period, your period. So there, and you just copy that down. You got that. Now we're gonna do the same thing as we did for the accounts receivable. So we're gonna do if is number. If there is a number for our absolute projection, we're going to use our absolute projection. If there is no number in our absolute projection, then we're going to go to our inventory days, right? So we're going to go to this number, and if there is an inventory day, we're going to reverse our calculation to get our inventory. So we're going to do, instead of dividing by COGS, we're going to multiply by COGS, and instead for multiplying by our period, we're going to divide by our period. So we're going to take our inventory days, we're going to divide it by, or we're going to multiply by our COGS. And then we're going to divide it by our period, which you can do this way since your model does it like this. I guess the reason the model does it is to account for a leap year, just in case if there is a leap year. But in this model we don't have a leap year, so we're good. Alright, I just accidentally pressed the button. But let's just say you don't have inventory days, so comma, that's false. Then we're going to grow our inventory by the growth of our COGS. So we're going to take our inventory right here, we're going to multiply it, but here's the problem. We did have a revenue assumptions, but we didn't have COGS assumptions, so how do we find the growth rate? Well, we do have our COG numbers over here, right? So what we're going to do, we're going to take this number, and we're going to divide it by the number right next to it. And what that does is give us the amount that it grew by, or the proportion it grew by, hence the percentage it grew by. So we're going to do that and close it with a couple of parentheses, press enter, and you have your inventory. Right? So let's move on to prepaid expenses. Now this should be probably one of the easiest one. It's the same concept. So prepay, control copy, and override. If you, as you can see, there's no inventory days or collection period type of calculation. So simply, we're just going to do if there is a absolute projection, then we're going to use our absolute projection. If that's not the case, so we don't have to put another if is number. If that's not the case, and the last option we have is that we're going to grow our prepay by our SG&A. Now we don't have we have a margin for SG&A, but we do not have a growth for SG&A. But one way we can kind of go around that is by taking this and dividing it by our previous SG&A number. Okay, do that. Sure. We have 0. There you go. Now we're gonna go into our other current assets. So that's gonna be over here. Not other non-current, but other current. Copy, enter. Now this is another easy one. So we're gonna do if is number. If there's our projection, if there's our absolute projection, we're gonna use our absolute projection. If that's not the case, we're gonna straight line. And what straight line means is essentially, okay, we're gonna take our previous number and that's it. So that's what we're doing right here. We're straight lining it if that's not the case. Here we go. Accounts payable. Accounts payable is going to be that number, do that. Now we do have a calculation that we need to worry about. Payables, payment period. It is very similar to inventory days and collection period, except we're going to divide our accounts payables by our COGS. Okay, so we're going to take our accounts payable divided by our COGS. Right, and then we're going to multiply by our difference of our period. There we go. Alright, so now we're going to create a three-pronged option over here. This number. If there is an absolute projection, we're going to use the absolute projection. If that's not the case, we still have another two options we need to worry about. So if there's a number, if we have an inventory days number, we're going to reverse that calculation to find our accounts payable. So except we're dividing it by COGS, we're going to multiply by COGS, and we're going to divide by our period. Okay? So we're going to take our inventory days number, then we're going to divide it by our COGS, I'm sorry, we're going to multiply by our COGS, sorry about that. And then we're going to divide by our period. If that's not the case, we don't have that number, our last option is that we're going to grow our accounts payable with our COGS. So we're going to do the same thing, we're going to do multiply by. Since we don't have an assumption just for that, so we're going to take our COGS divided by the previous year, COGS. There you go. We're going to do that. Alright, so now we have accrued expense, which should be pretty easy to get. Accrued expense should be in our liabilities. Then we're going to do if is a number. If we have an absolute projection, we're going to use our absolute projection, but that's not the case. We're going to take our accrued expenses, we're going to grow it with our SG&A. After like the couple ones, it comes kind of second nature to you. What's the drill? So I hope you catch the pattern quickly. And I'm looking here, so we're just going to do that. Alright. So our taxes payable is going to be taxes payable over here. Now our now we're going to have if there is a number or our absolute projection, then we're going to use our absolute projection. If that's not the case, we're going to grow our taxes with taxes. So we're going to take this, multiply by our proportion of our taxes from this year and last year. So do that, 33. Alright, so other current assets, we're almost done. Other current assets. Oh, other current liabilities, sorry about that. We're going to take out other current liabilities, copy it down, then we're going to do if there is a number for our absolute projection, then we're going to use our absolute projection. If that's not the case, we're going to straight line it. Right, so, okay, I'm probably gonna actually. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do it now. Alright, so our intangibles are going to be over here. Okay, so what's our amortization? Well, what we're gonna do in order to calculate our intangible is gonna be slightly different. We're gonna account for our purchases of intangibles and amortization. We can pull out purchase of intangibles, I think, from our cash flow statement, but we don't have any, so we don't have to worry about that. As for amortization, amortization, what is amortization? Or basically, it's kind of like depreciation for PP&E, except for this is intangibles, because we have to write down our assets every year, kind of figuring out what's this lifetime and whatnot. So where are we gonna get that amount from? Well, we're gonna have to go for our 10K for that. So let's go into our 10K. Where's my 10K? There. Right. So now we're just gonna go to, let's do control find amortization. I copied it wrong, or I spelled it wrong. Intangibles. Pretty serious. There. Amortization of intangible assets. So for 06 and 05 we have 15.6 and 16.3. 15.6 and 16.3. 15.6 and 16.3. And what are we gonna have for the next couple of years? What's gonna be our amortization? Well, luckily, they tell us how much are they predicting on their amortization amount for the next couple of years. So we're gonna find that somewhere over here. I need to first zoom out so I can see where I'm clicking. There. Yeah, there you go. It tells us over here. Let me zoom in. And this is why it's very important to look at. Alright, it tells us. Let me just wonder if I can. Okay, I can't. But this last sentence says, annual estimate amortization expense for each of the next 5 years is going to be expected to be 17 million. So we're going to put 17. And I'm just going to copy that down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But let's just say that we don't know for the next couple of years what's going to be our amortization. Well, we're going to just use the information that we have, so we're just going to straight line this. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're assuming that, you know, purchasing of intangible assets, that it can be very unpredictable unless that is a recurring thing on a company. In this case, it is not. So we're going to assume there is no intangible assets purchases. So we're going to just take our previous intangibles, add our purchases. Oh, and I forgot to do one more thing. Sorry about this, guys. Make sure this amount is negative. So negative, F2 is negative. Make sure this is negative. Copy that down. There. Okay, so we're gonna take our previous intangibles, add our purchases, and subtract, which still we're adding our amortization, and we get our current intangibles. And we just copy that down, and we just got our intangibles. Our PP&E, on the other hand, is gonna be is the same thing, except we're just dealing with depreciation. So let's line up our PP&E. Okay. Our depreciation, well, how do we get our depreciation? We can look into our 10K, that's not a problem, but there's another way, easier way. What we can do is that we can take our previous, we can take our depreciation, our DNA that we had, and subtract out the, we can subtract out the amortization that we found over here. So first we're going to get our depreciation, which is going to be 329.3, okay? And then we're going to subtract out, or I mean, we're adding, but this is already negative, so this is going to be pulling that out, so we don't have to worry about that. We're going to add out, or technically subtract out the amortization, and we get our depreciation, right? So we're going to copy that there. Alright, so what is our depreciation? Oh, we can copy all this whole thing down because we have the depreciation and amortization from the income statement, so we can definitely do that. Alright, so capital expenditures. Capital expenditures are essentially going to be in the cash flow statement. We don't have them yet, do we? Oh, no, we can pull them up. We have to go to our 10K to find this. So where's our cash flow statement? Our cash flow statement is going to be, it can also be statement of cash flows. No match. Let me just put in balance sheet because I know it comes after balance sheet. Okay, so before our balance sheet, there. No, that's incomes. That is right here. This is our cash flow statement. It looks something like this. We're going to deal with that later on, but only our cash flow statement has capital expenditures. And what capital expenditures is the expenditures that we make on our assets that we have, like repairments, kind of maintenance, and whatnot. And that's what our capital expenditure is. We put that into our investing because that is technically investing. We're inhibiting our, let's say, PP&E, and we're extending the life of that particular asset. So for 2005 it's going to be 389.2, and our it's going to be 476.4, 476.4. Now, how do we project this out? Well, there's a couple of different ways. What we're going to do is we're going to kind of find the proportion of these accounts with our revenues or our sales, and that's the percentage we're going to use to kind of multiply it out. Well, I'm not going to go into detail on, like, you just find the proportion behind it, and we found that it is pretty close to 5%. So what we're going to do, we're going to take basically the 5%, so 0.05, and we're going to multiply that by our sales or our revenues for that particular year, and we're going to get our capital expenditures. Now, this is just an estimation, so we can do this. There, right? Recurring asset sales. There are none on the balance sheet, and like I said, it's so unpredictable to buying or selling of assets that we're not going to worry about that in the future. So what we're going to do, we're going to take our previous PP&E, we're going to add our capital expenditures. Actually, yeah, we're going to add our capital expenditures, and then we're going to subtract out, which is also adding our depreciation. Okay, so why are we adding our expenditures? Well, remember, this expenditures is actually adding value to PP&E because it's extending its life, and that's what the capital expenditures are doing. And let me see if that's right. Yeah. And we can just put this as 0. Actually, 0, 0. Copy that down. There. Or not. Hold up. Sorry about this. And there you go. Alright, so we done. Now we can go back and link up all of our accounts. So we can do cash. Well, we haven't done cash yet, but we have done accounts receivables, which is over here. We have done our inventories, which is over here. Deferred income tax, we haven't done that. Prepaid expense, we have done that. Other current assets, we have done that. Other current assets, there, 280. Equity affiliates, we haven't done that yet. PP&E, we have done that, which is going to be over here. Our goodwill, we haven't done that yet. Intangibles, we have done that, which is over here. Other non-current assets, we haven't done that. Accounts payable, we have done that. Accounts payable. Accrued expenses, we have done that, which is going to be over here. Taxes payable, it's going to be over here. Current portion of other current liabilities, we have done that, is going to be over here. Our debts, we haven't done that yet. Our deferred income taxes, I think we have done that. Let me check. Okay, we haven't done that yet. Alright, so I think let me see if there's anything else. Yep. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to take this whole thing, copy, and just straighten, take it out. And we're going to take this whole thing, copy, and take it out. And I forgot to do that. Okay, apparently okay, there. Do that. Okay, apparently it's 615. I need to work on that. I don't know what's wrong with that. But as you can see, our balance sheet is coming along. The other stuff, as in outstanding shares and everything, that's a little bit complicated, so I'm going to save that for another video. But yeah, we're almost done, guys. Catch you later.